welcome to episode 5 of the Journey with Jared podcast. Today we have Steve Simons here again. I'm doing something a little bit different today where we're going to do a bit of a reverse interview. So Steve's actually going to be interviewing me. So
I will be interviewing the man himself. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm give me the non-typical answer. Good, how are you? Not much you. Opposed to the grade 5 MSN conversation. How's it going, man?
It is actually good. It's
Nice.
been a little bit of an interesting week for me.
Okay.
Just a couple of really cool realizations
Nice.
within myself, and had a couple of good meetings the last couple of days, and getting really excited
Wicked.
about some of my projects coming up. So
Nice, man. I'm excited to dive into some of that stuff today and what you're working on, kind of where you come from, and go from there. But
cool.
yeah, that's really great to hear. I think lots of times don't we often give the I'm good answer, just cop out, eh? I'm good, right?
We really do, and it's funny, working at Noble, one of the
Yeah.
first people that I ever met that did not just give that answer was Royal.
Royal, yeah?
You know, you'd ask him, and it threw me off the first couple times because, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's okay. Wait, you didn't just say good? Like, what's going on?
Wait a minute, hold up.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Awesome, cool, man. Well, we'll get into a couple things here, and I'm excited to have you on and be talking to you for a change and really understanding kind of where it all started. But first, before we get into that, why the journey with Jared? Why was this something you wanted to start, and
For sure.
and why are we here today?
Yeah. So it really came down to, I would say over the past year or so, a lot of just kind of hitting what I half jokingly but actually go through of, that
Nice.
quarter life crisis. Really feeling lost a little bit, not knowing if the path that I was on was the right one, and really just feeling stuck was the biggest feeling, I would say.
Yeah.
So really did, went over my life, looked back at it and said, is this really where I need to be right now? Slowly over the course of a couple months decided that I needed to change things up, and I kind of did a full reset, to be honest, on my life.
Yeah.
And
Good for you.
decided to start all over, essentially, and jump into some waters that I've never been in. So
Yeah, you say start over, and I'll stop you there. A lot of people think it's starting over, and I guess technically it is on paper, but the wealth of experience that you've had in the past has been huge and will be astronomical in your future success. So if you will talk a little bit to that about sort of your background, and because I really don't think you're starting over. You're going to do so well in what you do next in the podcast and your business that you're looking to start because you have that experience. But if you could speak a little bit to that experience, that'd be great.
I really appreciate that, first of all. So I think I mentioned the last time we were talking of, it's funny how much a lot of my life is almost by accident. Kind of just falling into things. So it started as I was going to university, I graduated high school, really didn't know what I wanted to do, randomly picked science, thought maybe, one day I'd become a doctor or something along those lines. And then randomly one day I was in class in, I think it was my 3rd year.
Okay.
And
what class?
It would have been, I think it was organic chemistry.
Nice.
Sitting in class.
I hated that class.
Yeah, I loved it actually. I was
Really?
a huge OChem nerd. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But anyways,
awesome.
somebody came into the classroom, stood up there, I half listened. He talked about, this summer job thing. At the time I was working at Safeway, the only job I'd ever had. I went, oh, that sounds cool. Okay, so I put my name on a little piece of paper, gave it to him. Got a call a couple weeks later, come do like an info session. Showed up not knowing what it was, hardly remembered I did that.
Forgot about it.
Yeah, really, literally forgot about it.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, okay, like we're hiring people to paint over the summer. And I went, okay, work outside, like, a little
Get
bit
a
of...
sick tan.
Get some
look
tan,
good for
yeah.
Girls.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. I'm like, I could do that. And then the more that he talked, he's like, oh, no, you run your own business. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And
you're, so at this time, to
Yeah.
preface, so you're a science student, so business isn't really even on your radar. You're not even
it's
thinking.
never been on my radar. And that was one of the biggest things was even no one in my family, right? No one in my family has that entrepreneurial bug. They've done some kind of, my parents have done a little bit of management, but kind of just really mid-level to, and so it was just really completely out of the blue. Honestly, it was kind of my competitiveness that kicked in, because the one thing that I remembered him saying was, we're only going to hire about 10 people for all of Calgary. And I went, oh shit, like, I want to be one of those 10. Yeah, that exclusivity. And and so I went, I want that, I'm going to try it. And honestly, I went in with the feeling of, no matter what happens, I'm just going to try it out. Even if I completely fail at it, you know, whatever. It's one summer, I'll try it out. So I really went into it not knowing anything about it. First year was really rocky. Wasn't a great year until the last month. I turned everything around. Came back for my second year with them. So running my own small painting business, doing commercial and residential work. So I hired employees, everything like that. It really was just a small business.
And did they give you some sort of business training? Like
a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. A lot of it was really just throwing you into it. You know, on the ground. You know, you go up with a district manager. You know, just. I got hired really late, and so I missed all of training, and so I really was just thrown into it of, okay, we're gonna go knock on some people's doors, ask them if they want a free estimate, and then
free estimate. That was your pitch.
Yeah, that was always the pitch. Is just a free estimate. Come take a look at it.
Give me the pitch. So knock on my door. Give me the pitch. Do you still remember it?
I think so. I gotta take a quick second. So
No
I think it was, hi, my name's Jared. I'm a student at Mount Royal.
Hey. How's it going?
Essentially, I go and then it was.
No. I'm the customer here, man.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember. Give me a break, Steve. Come on. It's been a while.
I'm grilling you.
Yeah. So hi, my name's Jared. I work for a company called Scholars Edge Painting.
Okay.
I'm a student at Mount Royal here in Calgary, and this summer we're going to be doing some work in the area. And so I was wondering if I could come and do a free estimate for some interior exterior painting on your house.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes
interior and exterior.
And exterior. Yeah. So I did both of them. Sometimes I would go in, and when I started getting a little more confident, I would actually point things out. Right. So I'd walk out.
This looks like
kind of, but not not like
nice
that.
way.
Yeah. And I'd go like a free estimate maybe on those windowsills right there, and then point to them and stare at them and be like the ones that are peeling right there. But anyways, so did that. And my second year I came back.
Second year?
Yeah, so I did it another summer.
Wow.
So first summer, again, didn't go super well, but last month really turned it around. Decided to come back for the next year. Ended up leading the company in sales that year.
Wow.
And then got promoted, so then I became a district manager, and I helped other students that were looking to do it in the summer, and I taught them how to run their own small businesses.
Wow.
So I was in charge of Alberta and Saskatchewan for that. And then I did that for 2 years. By that time, I was graduating in my last year. Wasn't sure if it was what I wanted to do the whole time, or in my future.
Okay.
And so,
but sort of so I did door to door too, and that in its sense is sort of looked at as a stepping stone into what you want to do. Did you view it as that at the time, or was it like, holy shit, I'm making great money, this might be something that I could...
So at the time, that's really where the entrepreneurial bug caught me.
Okay.
That was my first exposure to it.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, it really was for me, going from Safeway, which is heavily unionized.
Oh, really?
You get a raise when you hit this amount of hours.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And so the highest paid people there that weren't management were the people that had been there the longest, and most of them, like, quite frankly, sucked. Right? And it's just because they had been there for so long, they knew they could, it was almost impossible to get fired.
Yeah.
So they would just kind of coast and do whatever, and it always bugged me that they were getting paid, sometimes double what I was making.
Just for the amount of time being there?
Just because they were there for so long.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was the first thing where it was, is the first time that it was, I was getting rewarded for my results and not for the amount of time that I put in.
That's one thing with entrepreneurship that really sort of fucks with people or changes their mindset, right?
Yeah.
Because they go, wait a second.
Yeah.
I work 2 hours, I don't just get like $30.
Yeah.
Right? So speak to that first time where you found that out, where you're more results focused. Like, what was your first encounter with that?
Yeah,
you're
so
like, holy shit.
So how the story goes my first summer was I come out of the gates hot, right? And I'm like, kind of close to the top of the pack there.
Nice.
And I literally remember sitting there and going, well, this is easy. whenever I want to book a job, I'll just go and knock on a couple doors, I'll do a couple estimates, and I'll
Yeah.
book it, like no problem. Then I realized, oh, the numbers come into it, and I'd been lucky the first couple,
Okay.
and that's not how it works. You actually have to put the work into it.
Totally.
I fell into a little bit of really going into that employee mentality, and so I ended up
Yeah.
producing 90% of my work, of my own work that summer with one other guy. I'd have one employee, me and him, we'd paint all day. And really, to be honest with you, I was really miserable. And hated
Why?
it. I wasn't getting paid at all because it's all in your results. That's the other side of the coin,
Yeah.
right? Where, okay, yeah, you get paid on your results, but if you're not getting results, you're not getting paid. And I had a lot of startup. I had a lot of startup expenses in that.
Okay.
Paying off all my equipment, and there's a lot of dues.
And you pay for all that too when you're doing this?
Yeah, you're able to put it on an account that with the company, the organization that oversees all of it.
Okay.
But there's a lot of dues that go to them, and so I was paying all of that off. And
For sure.
I ended up actually, it's quite miserable. I remember having a moment too. I was sitting there on a job because I remember in the interview process,
Yeah.
one of the questions that Carl, who ended up being my DM, asked me was, "What was the last thing that you failed at?" And I went in and I'm like, "I don't fail. That's not what I do. I don't fail." The last thing that I would have failed, and I had to think about it. I went, grade 7 volleyball. I didn't make the team.
Really?
Cut me,
Who was
yeah.
the coach?
Oh, I don't even know. But it was juniors, and so I went back that next year in grade 8, and I tried out for seniors and made the team.
Nice.
So it was a little bit of my
Trained
mind.
all summer.
Yeah, it was a little bit of my mind, like,
Watch.
fuck you, coach, right?
Totally,
like, I'll go
yeah.
make seniors. Ended up being terrible at volleyball. Should not have been on the team. Rode the bench the whole year. But,
Hey, you're on the team.
yeah, but made it. And for me, that was the last thing that I had failed at in my mind. And so,
Okay.
fast forward, 6 months later, middle of the summer, and I'm sitting there one day and I'm going, wow, like this is the first thing that I've failed at since then. This is the first thing that I failed at, because I really felt like a complete failure at that point. I put in a ton of work. I mean, I was doing...
Because you failed in the painting company?
Yeah, I wasn't, I always have high expectations of myself, so
Yeah.
I'm not one of the top guys, right? I'm like...
Do you need to be the top guy? Or not need to be, but like, you're in it to be the top guy? You're not
I'm
just
in it to be the top guy. I want to
Okay.
be seen as, at the very least, one of those top earners, one of those
Yeah.
top performers, right? And so it was really tough for me not being that. And
Okay.
and so I was going through that. I was in a bit of a lull. I went, well, I didn't make any money this summer. But I mean, I worked, I tried something new, oh well,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I'm
Dabbler's mentality almost.
Yeah, the big thing with me too though is I can't quit anything, right?
Okay.
So at least for that there was a deadline, right? Like end of the summer, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick it out to the end of summer. I'm gonna produce the rest of my work, and I'll be done with it,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I start getting into. And funny, the owner of so my district manager, Carl, he goes on vacation in the middle of the summer. And I end up sitting down doing payroll with the owner of the company, and
Wow.
hadn't really dealt with him a ton. And he comes in and he runs the math with me.
Okay.
Because he could kind of tell that I was down, and I was like, I don't really want to do much more. I'm just going to finish this out and be on my merry way. And
Go
he
back to
sits-
Safeway.
Yeah, he sits down, we look at the numbers, and he says, if you can hit $40,000 in sales
Yeah.
for this summer, looking at where your account is now and the way that you've produced work, you can make $9,000 in this last month.
In this last month.
Yeah,
And so, working at Safeway,
I think I made $5,000 the year before.
You still remember that?
The entire year.
Wow.
Because when we sat down after
so $9,000 in a month, like,
Yeah,
holy shit.
I remember that because when we sat down for me being hired, we set goals of like, how much do you want to make?
Yeah.
I went, well, I made $5,000 at Safeway, so if I can make double that in the summer, I'll be happy,
Yeah.
right?
Now you're on the verge of almost making 90% of that in a month.
Yeah, and
Did that fire you up?
Well, to preface it too, to that point, I'd made maybe $1,500 in the 5 months previous to that.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a huge jump, right?
Yeah.
It did. It totally fired me up.
He set this goal for you. Did at any point in your mind you think, "Ah, fuck, I can't do that?
No, it wasn't so much that, it was more like, holy shit, I can do that.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like I can, and because, you know, like following along, it all made sense and I could see all the numbers. It wasn't like he was just setting a target for me being like,
It's
hey,
not raw.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna tell this kid that he can make $9,000. He'll actually probably make, you know, five to nine, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was like, no, the math worked out and I could see it and I went, okay. And then it re-energized me and I went, okay, I'm gonna do this. I mean, if it kills me, I'm gonna make it to 40 grand in sales.
Yeah.
I worked my ass off, and in that last month, I finally found out what it was like to run the business and not work in it.
Run the business, not work in it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
More of being that manager
Okay.
instead of being a worker within it.
Opposed to just painting houses, now are you going out and getting new accounts?
I was always doing that, but I was doing both.
Okay.
So it was like, I would go out, I would find the job, I would do the estimate, sign the client, and then I would show up with my employee and
Wow.
paint the house. Right?
Wow. Okay.
Now it was like, okay, I'm gonna organize the job site, I'm gonna make sure you guys have all the supplies. I inherited a bunch of
Sure.
painters from some of the other managers that had shut down early because they
The reject
wanted to go
painters,
back
or
to
were
school.
they?
No, they were the
Oh,
good
okay.
ones, right? So I got
The
this
good
like
painters.
good crew because that first year I was so bad at hiring
Okay.
and like terrible.
And are you going to students at colleges and universities and saying,
Yeah, I'm
Hey.
posting. I'm just posting online saying,
Posting
hey,
online.
like a student painting job, no experience required. We'll teach you how to do everything.
totally?
And so it was like not minimum wage, but it was close to that. It was not.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting like professional painters. We were teaching them how to do everything.
And
So
that's
a lot
fine.
of students were doing it, and they worked for me. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that last month, I actually go like, oh, this is what it's like. I don't have to sit there with a paintbrush and actually paint it all myself. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Now you have
weird.
these-
yeah.
Yeah.
And a capable team,
Totally.
which is a huge one too. And so, yeah, that last month goes. I make it. I work until like October. It's starting to get cold. It's getting into
Oh, yeah.
November. It's like almost
In
starting
Canada,
to
it's
snow.
getting
Yeah.
cold, yeah.
Yeah,
This
and
is in Texas in
I
October.
no, and I was also so I was playing junior football at the time too, and
Wow.
the season had started, and so I would go and practice, and so literally for a little bit, and then I went back to school. So
You went back to school at what time? Like
would have been September.
September?
So
You're
for
still doing this?
for
While you're
a
in school?
month and a half, I would go to school in the morning, go paint for a couple hours, and my painters would be painting during the day.
Yeah.
While I was at school, I would leave school, drive to the job site, help them out for a couple hours, and then drive straight to practice and go practice. And
Holy shit.
at that time, I think, basically I was at football 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. kind of thing. So
5 to 10?
yeah, it was meetings and practice and travel time, like just
Wow.
getting there is on the other side of the city. So my days are busy, but at the end of it, it almost came in exactly, and I was like, holy shit, I made
that goal?
$9,000 in this last month. And so that
Wow.
also hooked me, and I went, really what it was is I looked at it and went, if I did my whole summer like this last couple months, next year, I could make some bank.
Totally, and you're doing the math, because that definitely speaks to the analytical side of you. 'Cause I know you're a numbers guy.
Yeah,
You look at the spreadsheet and you'll know exactly what you're seeing. Those speak to you.
yeah.
So now did you take that first month, expand on that and go, okay,
A little bit. With the way that business and organization had it set up, we had a lot of upfront costs.
okay.
So the end of the summer was always the most profitable anyways, and so it would
Yeah.
always be back heavy. But I went, okay, well I know how to run it, I don't have to paint. My profit percentage
Okay.
would go down if I'm just running crews instead of actually producing the work myself.
Now your expenses are going up.
But, with doing more revenue, my overall profit would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right? And I went, okay, I can do that. I'm like, I'm gonna do this again.
Okay.
So that's when I came back, I did things properly, and then I made 25 grand that summer.
25 grand in the summer.
Yeah, and so that was cool. Learned
Compared
a
to
ton.
5 grand in a year.
Yeah,
That's
so
Safeway.
it was a big jump, and yeah, I mean, that really.
Talk about a shift in paradigm.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and it was huge, and it got me excited, got me pumped. And then I came back and I was a district manager for the next 2 years after that. But
Wow.
I also, with being a district manager, when you first start off, you actually make less money than when you were running your own business. So I went, no, I want to do both. Right?
Oh, okay.
And so I took on the commercial jobs. Like, that was one of the craziest summers that I've ever done. I was running a couple huge commercial projects. I was painting a condo complex, and I had
Commercial projects.
yeah. So I was doing that at the outside of a couple condo complexes. Then I had all of my guys that I was teaching how to run their business. I think I made like 50 grand that summer.
In the summer.
Yeah, and so it was pretty wild, like being at this point 21, 22,
okay.
right? And so I'm like, what do I do with all this money, right? And
you're 22.
Yeah, and
you have 50 grand that you just made in the summer. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Are you
well? And so that's where now it starts switching more so of, it goes to, is this what I want to do? Now my mind, I've always had a funny relationship with money.
Yeah.
Where it's almost a competitive side of me that likes to make it to show how much I've made.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily like it that much and don't spend it on anything.
Yeah.
Right? So now I just have all this money sitting.
The journey of getting it.
And I'm like, okay, well this is cool. But I started hitting that spot, and there are a couple things that being a district manager that I didn't love.
Okay.
It was just a different dynamic. And
I find that's a lot of an employee type mindset too.
What do you mean?
Compared to I don't know, in your experience, what do you think? But now being an employee and just managing people.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't necessarily the employee aspect of it. I think it was more going back to that when I was running my own crews.
Yeah.
Now this is a reflection on me.
Okay.
But when I was the district manager, my income and success was directly related to my managers running their businesses successfully.
Okay.
So it was a lot more hands off.
Yeah.
And I didn't have as much control because it depended so much on them.
Moving parts, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd say that's more what it was.
Okay.
And at this point I was just kind of starting to look at different parts for a different industry.
And what was that time? Because you came to a point where it sounds like, maybe I don't want to be a painter when I'm 40.
Yeah.
But you have that sort of entrepreneurship itch now. So where do you take that? Where do you apply that?
So and actually just as you were talking, I remembered what it was.
What was it?
I've always had a thing where I go, I hate routine. And I hate doing what I feel is the same thing over and over again.
Totally.
And
insanity.
And I love learning.
Okay.
And so really the big takeaway, and I've started to realize I've done this a couple times now, is as soon as I feel like I stop learning, I need to move on to something else.
Do the same thing.
Right? Yeah. And so that's what happened with this last change too. I was like, okay, I think I've learned, there's still minor things that I can pick up on, but I think I'm 95% of the way there, and in these first couple of years I've learned a ton, and now it's like there's only a little bit left to learn, and so that's where
it's almost like that spike. Hey, if you look at it as a graph, you think like the learning curve is usually just like crazy, like skyrockets, and then there comes a point where it sort of plateaus,
starts tapering off.
Yeah, tapers off, and I think that excitement's lost there.
Yeah. So
for you needed to get back into a vehicle where you're learning something and challenging yourself.
Yeah.
Is that what sparked the podcast?
Yes and no. I would say the podcast is a lot more jumping outside of my comfort zone, which is definitely the same bucket.
Yeah.
I guess I would say it's exactly the same feeling. It's not it's learning in a way that I haven't necessarily before though, because I've always learned from other people.
Yeah.
And now this is really the first time in my life where I'm just gonna try something and figure it out as I go, all by myself.
Fuck yeah.
Right. So
Sick.
So I'd say So that's kind of where that comes from.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what's that next challenge for you? I mean, we're all trying to figure that out, right? We're all trying to figure the next challenge and look for that. But where do you think that's headed? Because you're on the right track. You're looking for more. And I know you'll find it, and you're in the process of doing that. But what's that next challenge look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, this next challenge in this next chapter of my life is really, for the first time, being completely on my own. Where I've always been, ever since I got that entrepreneurial bug going, and being either a number 2 or like a 1B sort of, environment where
But never the guy.
Never the guy.
Yeah.
I have a ton of freedom and flexibility, but I always have someone to fall back on.
Yeah.
And so this next chapter is like not having that person and seeing if I like that, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's a huge thing of making sure that's actually what I want to do, or am I more suited for that number 2 position?
It's having a bit of that self-awareness, to find out. But
yeah, and I knew that I would never be able to figure it out if I didn't jump into it.
Yeah.
Right? So okay, I have to try out being the guy.
Yeah.
See if I like it, to see if I'm good at it, and to see if I want to do it in the future, because I know I would regret it if I didn't.
That's a point there. I know I would regret it if I didn't.
Yeah.
That really keeps me up at night. And is that something that in the back of your head was always kind of there? Like you knew that you weren't the number 1 guy, maybe the 1B. Still a pivotal role in that, but it was important for you to explore that.
So where that came from actually is I never wanted to be that guy for the longest time.
Okay.
Because and I've gone through it in my mind to figure out why.
Yeah.
And what I came to it was I didn't actually have the belief in myself to be that number 1 guy.
Oh really?
I didn't think that I could do it.
Yeah.
And so the huge mental side of my journey the last year has been starting to get a little bit of that true confidence.
Yeah.
Changing about how I actually see myself and how I think about myself. And so that once I got over that hump a little bit of it still scaring the shit out of me, but being like, I want to be the guy.
Okay,
I think I'm ready to be the guy and have the consequences and the rewards and the experience of being that number 1 guy. And so that's what started it. And then it stuck, and that just kept rattling and rattling and rattling. So I was like, okay, I gotta try being that guy.
And good for you, because so many people would just be comfortable. I think comfort's the enemy, as Jocko Willing says, right? Comfort's the enemy. That's such a hard thing, I think, to do, is to just say, hey, I'm gonna go ahead on my own. Because very successful guy, you own a restaurant, you're a pivotal part in a tech company, but knowing that you need to get out of that comfort zone and go do your own thing, that's awesome.
Thank you, yeah.
Because so many people, probably myself included, would say, hey, I got it pretty good here, it's safe, I got a steady paycheck, that kind of thing. But when you look at the future, are you excited? How are you looking at it now that you're going out and doing your thing?
Yeah, and actually just really quickly going back to that point I think that's one of the reasons why it was why it was so hard for me to make that decision, because of what you just said. Because of from the outside looking in, being like, I've been successfuck, I have a lot, I've done a lot.
Yeah.
I should be happy, but knowing that I'm not. And
that's a mind fuck.
Yeah, so that's really getting over that hump was huge of like I should be happy, but I'm not. And then finally realizing like, no, okay, you actually aren't happy, and so you have to make that change.
But then we were talking about it last time. You said if there's a change that you need to make, you'll just say fuck it and you'll do it. Yeah. Because you know that, right?
I knew as soon as I came to that realization, I knew that I had to.
Yeah.
It was more pulling the trigger that took the longer time.
For sure.
And sorry, going back, what was the follow-up question?
The follow-up question.
So you went through that, and then you asked me.
Through your comfort zone?
Out of my comfort zone?
Yeah, I forget. Cut. Yeah, but if you don't mind speaking to, so just give a little context too of what was the situation that you were in, and ultimately you've gone on to do your own business, which is awesome, and you can talk more about that as well. But what was the situation that you were in? Because it looked successful on paper, and it definitely is. But what sort of made you go out and start that?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess trying to go over it really quickly because I don't want to take too long. But so I met a guy through a mentorship program. He became a mentor. I decided to leave the painting company, go work for him essentially.
That was your next gig from the painting company?
Yeah, so that was the next gig. I did everything. I ran. I did beer gardens for a couple festivals. I organized those. I ran a meal prep and delivery company.
And how did that do, the meal prep company?
It was good. It was really took off right away. It was a really tough business to run, and then I started getting pulled away from it to go work on other projects. And once I wasn't able to focus on it, unfortunately, it kind of fell by the wayside. We ended up pausing operations on it, which was tough, but I think was the right decision. But yeah, so I was doing that, ran a food truck for a little while. And then I ended up, he asked me basically like, hey, do you want to build out this restaurant that I have a concept for?
Wow. And do you think that was because he saw that you could run beer gardens successfully? You've sort of proven yourself.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of tests. It was very stepped. I knew about the restaurant the first time that I met him. But it was very much, okay, go do this, and
very cool.
I guess just another thing that came up for me was running into even that situation with my eyes wide open of, okay, I really have no idea where this is going to lead. Right, so I meet him, I'm making good money, doing the painting thing. He tells me, hey, do you want to leave all that behind and go support yourself by getting a serving job and then go run these companies this company on the side?
You're like, what the fuck?
I was like, that sounds awesome.
Nice.
You know, and it was, I don't know where this is going to go, like I'm not going to be making money, but I felt stuck in that last position, in that last company, and so I'm just going to jump. And so I made the decision to do that, and I said, I don't know where this is going to lead.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
And going back to you wanting to be challenged and learn something, that environment, it sounds like, is just like speaks to you. It's like, here's a challenge. Go prove to yourself and to me that you can do it and run with it and just make it successful. And that's exactly what you did. So
yeah, I'm so funny that way. For me, it's all about that challenge and that fight. Everything I do. So even if it's like we talked about last time, being very competitive. If it's in sports, if it's playing video games, if it's playing a game.
We play a lot of NHL and it gets super heated.
I crush Steve every single time.
Cut that out.
But if it's not a challenge, I find it boring. If it's too easy to win, or if I get blown out of the water like completely where it's just not even a competition, I like that more than winning too easily, but I love the I'd rather fight tooth and nail and just come up short than have it easy breezy and win every time.
Totally.
And so I love challenging myself, and that's where I jumped into that one. He says,
incredible.
He says, do you want to build up the restaurant? And I said, I have no idea how to do that. He says, I don't know. Like, okay, we'll figure it out. I said, okay.
You said that? I don't. I've never built.
I said I was a painter, but that is a lot different than going from a blank slate and doing all the HVAC. And
we didn't learn that in organic
chem. And so I said, basically, if he's willing to give me that opportunity, then.
And that's all you needed at that time. It sounds like.
And
you're ready to go. You just need that opportunity. I think that's where a lot of millennials sort of struggle is. Maybe they're ready to go, they just don't have the right vehicle. They'll go to these conferences, they'll be all raw, they'll be like, I'm inspired, it's awesome, it's great. They may not have that vehicle. So now you have the mindset.
I would say on that too, though, I was really willing to do it for nothing. I was willing to do it for that learning experience and expected nothing out of it, which I think is a big hurdle for a lot of people. Right? Where I go, I'll work 15 hours a day doing something that I have no idea how to do. More stress than I've ever been in my life. And I'll do it just to do it. Which makes me a little bit crazy.
On paper, that sounds fucked.
But that's just how I work, right? And it worked out for me. Right?
Absolutely.
I ended up, we became business partners, and so I am a part owner on that. It was the craziest and most stressful time of my life, and I loved every second of it.
Really?
Doing 80, 100-hour work weeks and being into the office until 10 p.m. I loved when around 6 p.m. would hit. because everyone else stopped working, so I could get the other work done and I wouldn't get bored. And so at 6 to 10 p.m. was always nice for me because nobody else was up.
Is that like, that speaks to both our competitive sides, but is that like waking up early in the morning where you sort of have that feeling of like, I'm a bad motherfucker, like I'm awake right now doing work?
Yeah, except I'm not a morning person at all.
Okay, so 6 to 10 is your time.
So I'm exactly that way, and whenever I hear about people talk about waking up early, I'm like, that's why I like to work late.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
it's the same feeling, so yeah, definitely.
Nice, because you know when they're at home, like just watching Netflix, you're building a business, you're doing these kind of things.
Well, it was fun for me too, is the other thing. Like, for me, working and doing business and being an entrepreneur is fun. And I think that's why I can do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's how people look at me and they'd go like, what are you doing? You're going to kill yourself, right?
But is it not, that's awesome to hear, is it not work to you?
I mean, yes and no. It's like, almost no.
Really?
Right? So, being an employee is work for me.
Fuck yeah, me too.
And that's what was happening. What was happening in this last position was I was in an employee box for the first time since I was at Safeway.
Really?
And
so you built this business, and then you look around one day after building a successful business, loving building it, but now finding out you've built a job?
So that was more when I started working with Noble, the technology company.
Okay.
So I guess built the restaurant, ended up running the restaurant for a while.
Wow.
Then was able to finally promote some people from within. They took over, and now I have free time. I'm like, okay, well, I don't like free time. I want to work more. And so I ended up with the same guy. Ended up working and taking over sales for the technology company.
As the head of sales?
Yeah, as the chief growth officer. And with something really new again and exciting, and when I have no idea how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I like doing. I like the challenge. But what I found was that was, like I said, I was in an employee box for the first time. And I experienced more tiredness and burnout and decline in happiness in that 8 hours where I was only really doing, 4 to 6 hours of work than I did when I was doing those 80 to 100 hour, 15, 16 hour days building the restaurant.
Repeat that.
Yeah, it was really, it was...
So you...
Yeah, it was being in an office, quote unquote office job, doing, being there for 8 hours where I would only actually do
40 hours a week.
4 to 6 hours of work a day.
Okay. Let's call it 30 hours just for the sake of it.
It was there for 40 hours, 40 to 50 hours. It was, like 20 to 30 hours worth of work because I couldn't physically bring myself to do it more.
Yeah.
And I would go home more exhausted, more tired, and had that burnout feeling. It was more prevalent than when I was building the restaurant and working 80 to 100 hours a week. And
That's insane.
Every second.
I felt that too.
Like it wasn't, it wasn't, there for 15 hours to 10 hours of work even. It was like,
staring at the clock.
Yeah, it was,
right.
I should go home because it's getting very late and I guess I can do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I hardly have time to eat. Like let's scarf this down, And
Okay.
so that was another big realization that I went, okay, this is important. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and there's so many different points that we can go, or different avenues we take this, but it's so interesting to hear because I felt the same way.
Yeah.
And you think, why the hell? I've only worked, say, 30, 40-hour week. Why am I burnt out and unmotivated?
Yeah.
And then you work on something that you're passionate about, and
time just flies.
Time flies. So, that being said, do you think people should follow their passion? Because you hear that everywhere now. What's your thoughts on that?
My first thought is we might be getting kicked out of this room right away.
Oh yeah.
So we might have to continue this later.
Okay.
But we're gonna keep going.
Part 2.
I think I completely agree with that, and it wasn't until 2 nights ago because I really struggled with that, and I went, okay, what is my passion? That's what I want to do.
Because that really fucks up a lot of, not even just millennials or Gen Z, just people in general.
Yeah.
Is what am I passionate about? I don't know.
Yeah, and I
Just
feel
get
like
hung up on that.
there's a lot of weight behind that. Like, okay, I need to find something that I'm passionate about.
Find it now.
Find it
Yeah.
now, and it has to be very specific and very pointed. And
Yeah.
I was really struggling with that, and all of a sudden, I just randomly had this thought pop into my mind. I went, wait, I know what my passion is. Like, I like building businesses. I
Really?
like being an entrepreneur. I know this.
Had you
What I
forgotten
was
that?
struggling, no, I guess what I was struggling with is I wasn't focusing on that part. I was focusing on, I need to find what I'm passionate about to make my business about,
Oh,
right? And I went, well, am I passionate about selling clothes? Like, no.
not really.
I tried to force myself. I'm like, I don't know, what am I passionate about? What am I passionate about?
Yeah.
And then I had the realization, I'm like, I just like building businesses, and it doesn't necessarily matter what they are, and I've been getting so frustrated with it.
Yeah.
I would say an easier one, and what I would takes, in my opinion, takes a little bit of weight away from it is, I think that people should strive to be happy, and stealing that from Gary Vee.
Yeah.
But it really has,
Your version of happiness.
has
right?
sunk in for me.
What's that look like for you?
Well, for me, that's, I think right now is just, you know, jumping into something, trying to see if I do like being the guy. Does being the guy running my own business
Yeah.
make me happy? Right? And I don't know the answer to that question yet. But,
But what better way than doing it?
and it's the other one of, okay, I knew I wasn't happy before.
Yeah.
Now this seems at least closer to me being happy at this moment, and it might change.
Yeah.
But right now, this seems, I feel happier now, and so I must be moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so
You know, in your soul almost.
yeah, and so I can feel that. I can feel that I'm happier.
Yeah.
And so okay,
And
let's
it's a
just,
process. You
let's
get-
just keep
Me too.
finding our way through there.
Fuck yeah.
And if something makes me feel less happy, okay, that's not what I should be doing. If
Yeah.
you know, this makes me feel more happy, okay, I'm gonna keep going on that.
Yeah.
But having the flexibility on that too. And so right now I'm just trying to try a whole bunch of stuff. And,
Fuck yeah.
my problem is I've never necessarily been like a big idea guy. I've always struggled with the initial idea.
But once you have an idea yourself, you're
I
the
can
best
run.
executor and builder, and you can run with
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
that's, yeah, we have some friends that are like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what
Don't
I
let
love
that
to do.
idea get caught up.
And that's
Yeah.
where I was getting caught up. And
Like,
so
'cause same way.
I think I took away the importance of the idea.
Okay.
You know, it's like the idea isn't actually that important because
Yeah.
your passion is building businesses. So it doesn't necessarily matter, you know, what idea you have because you're going to enjoy it. And if you pick the wrong one, then you can just try another one, but you know it's still going to be in that realm of building
Yeah.
businesses, right? And so that took a lot of weight off my shoulders, and I could feel that. And I went, like, it was so simple, and yet I was missing it the whole time. So
Yeah, and you don't, we'll wrap this up pretty soon before we get a part two. But I definitely applaud you in doing that, and you don't know sort of what the next step might look like, but if you're headed in that direction where you know that you're really gonna be challenged and learning and growing, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where you gotta go. And I can
Yeah.
tell your energy when you're talking about this,
yeah,
you're like really fired up.
yeah,
Because your whole physiology has changed sort of
Yeah.
when you talk about that. And that's great to see because so many people are maybe in that situation right now where they're know they maybe want to make a change, but it's tough for them and they don't know how to navigate that. Any tips before we head out here on how to come to that realization
which realization though?
of,
Specifically?
hey, I want to go out and do my own thing. I now am enlightened, know my passion.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I would say, honestly, kind of just what I was talking about before. Of
Yeah.
Just really try to listen to how it makes you feel inside, right?
Hmm.
And for me, the big one was also, and I wasn't in touch on how I was actually feeling or what was making me feel that way.
Okay.
Right? And what I mean by that is, you know, I thought that I didn't want to be the guy because I wasn't capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But once I started really looking into it, I went, no, I know I'm capable of it.
Yeah.
I don't believe in myself to do it. I don't trust myself to do it.
Wow.
I don't think that other people see me as that person.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was another big one. So that feeling wasn't because I didn't want it or because I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
That feeling was more put there by exterior motivators
Yeah.
that really changed the way I viewed myself. And so really trying to figure out, like, deep down, what is the root of those feelings.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me a lot.
Wow. Powerful. All right, thanks guys. We'll be back for part 2 here.
Thanks,
And,
everyone.
I think we're getting kicked out of here, so
Yeah.
thanks for having me.
Subscribe to the podcast.
Absolutely. Where can they find you online?
Everywhere podcasts are found. Spotify,
MSN,
iTunes.
AOL.
No MSN or AOL, but
No?
Spotify, iTunes, Google, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, I'll be there.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.